The C&O Canal Trust was established in 2007. My name is Robert Mertz. I'm a board member of the trust. And we basically are working with the park in order to promote its interests, to help with interpretive educational programs, preservation of the canal as a canal, also preservation of the towpath. The C&O Canal was started actually on July 4th, 1828. It was finished construction in 1850. It goes 184.5 miles from Georgetown in Washington to Cumberland, Maryland. The reason for building the canal was that there's a change of 605 feet in elevation between Washington and Cumberland. And Great Falls being the largest fall, but there are a lot of obstacles. It was the second major canal built in this country after the Erie Canal. And they have a lot of structures in this park.
Some of those structures were lock houses. These houses were for the lock keepers who collected tolls and kept records of commerce on the canal.
And the fear was that these would just collapse if there wasn't something done to protect them. What could you do to protect them that wasn't just putting in maintenance dollars, but could you use them both to preserve them and to give people a chance to understand the history of the park?
So the Canal Trust decided to allow people to stay overnight in a lock house. The funds raised would help preserve these historic buildings, and it would give the public a glimpse of what it was like to live there years ago.
Basically, you're trying to explain to the community and bring them into the park to enjoy it, to help as volunteers to protect it, to maintain it.
I'm Becky Curtis. I'm the Director of Programs and Partnerships for the C&O Canal Trust, and today we're at Lock House 25. So Canal Quarters is an interpretive, immersive experience within the park where you can register for an overnight stay. Each lock house is restored, furnished, and interprets a different time period and story in the canal's history. You can reserve for 1 to 3 nights, and to do so you'd go on canalquarters.org. From there you can choose which lock house would appeal to you most, which story, where on the canal you want to stay, and look at a calendar of dates.
Each one has had a theme, an interpretive and educational theme associated with it.
We have 4 in Montgomery County. We have Lock House 6 in Brookmont, which is just a few miles out of the District of Columbia. We have Lock House 10 in Cabin John, Lock House 22 at Pennyfield Lock, which is just outside Potomac, Lock House 25 that we're at today in Edwards Ferry in Poolsville. Each Canal Quarters lock house depicts a different time period in the canal's history, and we really tried to keep the furnishings, the amenities, very similar to what you would have found as a lock keeper. So Lock House 25, the one that we're in right now, reflects the 1850s. There is no heat in this house. There is also no running water. In the more rustic lock houses like the one we're in today, the typical lock house is a 4-room house. Down here we have the dining room and living room. And upstairs we have 2 separate bedrooms. Here we are going into the basement of Lock House 25. We do have a full basement with storage capable of having your canoes and kayaks and bikes. It is quite chilly in the winter months, but in the summer this is the best heaven. We do have some that are slightly bigger, but they all sleep up to 8. So when you register for a night, for the more rustic lock houses, it's typically a couple weeks in advance and you can get your choice of date. If you're looking at lock houses 6 or 10, which are closer to the district and do have the full utilities, you typically want to look a couple months in advance. Lock House 10 shows the other end of the spectrum of what you would get in a Canal Quarters. It depicts the 1930s. So you do have running water, a full bathroom with a shower, which if you are a through biker on the canal is just a wonderful, wonderful thing at the end of the day. Heat and air conditioning. And it's a very different feel to it, obviously, than the 1850s, how they would have lived.
It's nice.
Great.
Great, yeah. Upon first impression, it is very quaint. It's like going back in time. And I got the beard for it, so I think it should be a requirement to have a beard and stay here.
Yeah.
We did some studies about just how many people use these sorts of structures and these recreational facilities, and found that this probably would get a very substantial utilization from people, both on weekends, but also through hiking, through biking.
My name is Marcia Carlson. I'm at Lock House 10 in Cabin John, Maryland, along the C&O Canal, and I'm a quartermaster here.
Oh, wow!
So basically when you walk inside, you walk in the living room, and the furnishings are actually chosen as close to the period as possible. 1930s kitchen.
I like the fridge.
I immediately noticed the charm of the old furniture. When we opened up the cabinets, they had old-time utensils, plates. Oh, they're really authentic. It's like fitting for the house and the time. It makes you really feel like you're living in the day.
You walk right across the bridge of the canal, and then you just go down a hill, and the Potomac's right there, and you could see it from the cabin. So it's really nice to be, you're pretty much on the water.
National Park Service historians T. Sutton Jett.
There's a plaque on the wall above one of the fireplaces with the history of the lock houses and their function on the canal.
You actually get to learn a little bit of history about the lock house, what actually went on when that was in a working lock house, and that was pretty cool to see.
There's a guest book, and this is probably the most interesting part, was we were reading through some of them. They rent out these lock houses different nights, and they bike from Cumberland. They bike all day and then stay at a lock house and then continue into their way.
This lock house is really neat, and of course I love all the lock houses, but this lock house is really neat because it is close enough to Washington, D.C., where you can bicycle into the district.
The first day when we got there, we rode our bikes down to Georgetown, and that was great. It was an easy ride. It was about 10 miles, so it was challenging, but still the path is easy. It's nice and clean. Everyone was out seeing the cherry blossoms, and we had no traffic. Back, we had a cookout.
We put brats on the grill and vegetables, and we sat around, told ghost stories. No, just kidding.
We roasted marshmallows, had s'mores. It was really fun.
There's no TV, so it makes it even more entertaining to come up with things to do. They leave you some games. Some of the games are 50 years old.
They had tiddlywinks. We played tiddlywinks, yeah.
The next morning we got up early and rode our bikes north to Great Falls, which was kind of nice. It was good staying at Lock House 10 because you're like right in the middle. You can either go to Georgetown or you can go to Great Falls. We brought a camera with us, and I'm really glad we did because there's a lot of cool things that we can go back and look at. Me and my fiance Natalie, we were riding our bikes along the canal up towards Great Falls. Kind of come down to where one of the parking lot is off Claire Barton Parkway, and then it's like you're kind of in West Virginia. It's nice, it's rural, there's a lot of wildlife there. We saw a blue heron in the water, and it looked like he was going to jump out into the water, so I was like, oh, so I got the camera out and started taping him a little bit, and like I might actually get him catching a fish on camera, like this would be kind of cool. And all of a sudden he dives down into the water. Oh, sweet. And he comes up with this huge fish, and he just swallows it whole. It was really cool to see. I've never seen one do that before.
Awesome. It's a good breakfast.
We stayed pretty much right in DC and Georgetown, but for much cheaper.
There's just a lot more things you can do at the Lock House as opposed to a big chain hotel.
For more info, please contact the Canal Trust at 301-714-2233 or go to canaltrust.org.